From the outside, Ryan Holloway had it all. A mansion in Lancaster's richest neighborhood, a construction empire spanning 3 states, a beautiful wife named Melanie, and 2 bright children studying in elite universities. But behind the polished, wood and marble floors, cracks had started forming, ones only Ryan could feel. At 45, Ryan was a man who had poured sweat and soul into every brick of his success. He came from rural Pennsylvania, where people measured wealth in hard work, not bank accounts. He didn't inherit anything. He built it. Holloway Construction wasn't just his company. It was his legacy, his identity. Even after becoming CEO, Ryan still visited job sites, shook hands with workers, and sometimes even picked up a shovel. His hands, rough from decades of labor, reminded him every day that nothing came easy, and that's what made it valuable. His wife, Melanie, had been with him from the beginning. They met in college. He studied business while juggling part-time construction gigs. She studied interior design. They'd been broke, but in love, scraping by on cheap dinners and shared dreams. Now, after 23 years, Ryan still looked at her like she was the woman who once laughed with him while painting their first apartment. But lately, she didn't laugh much, and she definitely didn't look at him the same way. Family dinners were silent. Conversations stopped when he entered the room. Her phone, once freely placed on counters, was now always face down. Messages were hidden. Calls ended the moment he walked in. One night in early October, as Ryan was preparing to leave for a late meeting, Melanie didn't even glance up. "Working late again, honey?" she asked flatly, still scrolling on her phone. "Big project. In Harrisburg." "Hospital extension," he said, watching her eyes, noting the flicker of relief. "I'll be out with the girls. Don't rush back." Ryan nodded, kissed her cheek. She barely reacted, and left. What she didn't know was that Ryan had canceled the meeting. He was planning a surprise, dinner at Laella, her favorite Italian place. But as he drove past the restaurant, his world tilted. Through the window, he saw Melanie, not with her girlfriends, with Damon Walsh, a man Ryan vaguely knew from the country club, a financial advisor, charming, flashy, younger. Damon's hand rested on Melanie's fingers across the table. Their faces were close, the kind of close that spoke a language Ryan had never been allowed to understand. He didn't stop the car. He didn't call her out. Not yet. Because Ryan had learned something from building skyscrapers. You never demolish without understanding the structure first. That night, he went home, quiet, controlled. But something inside him cracked, just like the first silent fracture in a pane of glass. Ryan Holloway's 50th birthday was coming up. A milestone, a reminder, a line drawn across decades of sacrifice. He didn't want a party. He didn't want grand gestures. He just wanted one thing: connection. So he planned it, carefully, thoughtfully. He booked the private vault room at Lancaster's most exclusive restaurant, a restored historic bank, now known as the Vault. The irony didn't escape him. A place that once held other people's wealth would now try to hold the only thing that truly mattered to him, his family. Over Sunday breakfast, one of the rare times everyone was home, Ryan made the announcement: "I've booked the Vault. For my birthday, just us. Saturday night, private dinner. It would mean a lot to me if we all could be there." Melanie looked up briefly from her phone and offered a tight, polite smile. "That sounds nice." Noah shrugged. "Do I have to dress up?" "Yes," both parents answered in unison. Maybe the only thing they'd agreed on in weeks. Amber stirred her coffee without looking at him. "I'll check my schedule, Dad." Ryan nodded, masking his disappointment. Over the next 2 weeks, he watched more closely than ever before. Melanie was always running errands. New shopping bags came in. None of those items ever appeared at home. Her late nights, hushed phone calls, abrupt room exits, Ryan tracked them all. And as he tracked, he prepared. He met quietly with his lawyer, Bennett Woodward, a man who had known him since the days of blueprints and borrowed capital. "Getting your affairs in order?" Bennett asked gently as Ryan signed document after document. Ryan simply nodded. A man reaches a certain age, starts thinking about legacy. 3 days before the dinner, he paid the reservation in full. 6 guests, a curated menu, wine pairings, the works. Ryan, Melanie, Amber, Noah, his mother-in-law, Sophia, and his younger brother, Lucas, the only one who had stood by him when their father abandoned them. The day arrived. He woke up to an empty bed. Melanie had left him a birthday card. Generic. No handwritten note, just Happy 50th, and her name printed at the bottom. In the fridge, a small store-bought cake. No breakfast, no warmth, no family. Still, he held on to hope. He dressed in the navy suit Melanie once said made him look devastatingly handsome. He arrived early at the vault, checked the arrangements, and waited. PM, nothing. 30, no calls, no messages. 45, he called Melanie, no answer. He texted Amber, Noah, nothing. Finally, he called Lucas. "Hey, Ryan, I'm so sorry," Lucas said, genuinely upset. "My flight got canceled. I tried to call earlier, but it went straight to voicemail." At 7 p.m., Ryan sat alone in a dining room filled with polished silverware and empty chairs. The staff looked awkward, unsure if they should serve or just pretend this was normal. "Would you like a glass of wine while you wait, Mr. Holloway?" a young server asked gently. Ryan took a breath, nodded. "The Cabernet, please." For 30. His phone buzzed, a small flicker of hope. Maybe a message, an apology. Instead, it was a tag on social media. "Family night with my favorites." Posted by Melanie. Ryan's heart stopped. The photo, Melanie, Amber, Noah, Sophia, and Damon Walsh, all smiling at a steakhouse, across town. The Capitol Grill. Amber wore the earrings Ryan gave her for her 21st. Noah wore the Rolex he passed down when he graduated high school. Sophia had on the pearls Ryan gifted her after her husband died. Melanie wore a new dress. One he had never seen before. And Damon? He had his arm around her chair, as if he'd always belonged there. Ryan's face remained calm, but something inside him shattered. Clean, silent, permanent. When the server returned with wine, he looked up with a polite, empty smile. "No need to wait any longer," he said softly. "I'll have dinner alone." As he ate, he posted his own message, simple and sharp. Reminder, I'm the one who pays for Mom's comfort and the kids' college dreams. He silenced his phone. Then, he took a slow sip of his wine, savoring the bitterness. In that moment, Ryan Holloway disappeared. The invisible man was done waiting to be seen. Ryan Holloway didn't scream. He didn't throw things. He didn't beg. Instead, he woke up the next morning before the sun had touched the sky. The air in the house felt colder than usual. Maybe it was just his heart finally freezing over. He brewed his coffee slowly, like a man savoring the calm before a storm. Then, he went to his home office, sat at his desk surrounded by pictures of the very people who had abandoned him, and opened his laptop. One by one, he logged into every financial account, every payment system, every auto-pay subscription that had quietly drained his fortune, and he began shutting them down. Amber's tuition? Canceled. Noah's meal card. And rent? Canceled. Sophia's luxurious assisted living? Downgraded. Melanie's credit cards? Frozen. The country club, landscaping, premium cable, personal trainer, spa services, gone. Click, click, click. It was like watching dominoes fall, years of silent generosity, erased in a morning. Next, he called HR at Holloway Construction. "Nancy, please remove my wife from my health insurance plan." And cancel any company credit cards issued to her or the kids. Nancy paused. Family emergency, Mr. Holloway? Something like that, Ryan replied, his voice calm, cold, final. By noon, he had transferred large sums of money into new accounts, accessible only by him. He initiated freezes on family trusts and investment accounts, pending discrepancies. He had built an empire brick by brick. Now he was dismantling their comfort, transaction by transaction. And he wasn't finished. He packed a small bag with only the essentials, left his sleek family SUV in the garage, took his brother Lucas's old pickup truck, parked outside his unused townhome, and disappeared, without saying a word. At exactly 3 p.m., just as banks closed, his phone exploded with messages. Melanie. Ryan, what's going on with the accounts? Call me now. Amber. Dad, my rent bounced? My landlord is losing it. What's happening? Noah. WTF, Dad? The bursar's office says I'm getting dropped from classes? Sophia. Ryan, dear, the facility says I'm past due. There must be some error? Ryan read each message like a business report. No response. No reaction until a new number called. He picked up. Ryan, it's Damon Walsh. Look, I think we need to talk man to man. Ryan leaned back in his chair, smiled slightly. I believe you gave up the right to man conversations the moment you spent my birthday with my wife and children. That was just bad timing, Damon replied awkwardly. No, Damon, timing is accidental. What you did, that was a choice. Click. He turned his phone off. That night, in the quiet of Lucas's guest room, he wrote 3 letters, by hand. One to Amber, one to Noah, one to Melanie. Each letter was detailed, not emotional, precise, like a construction blueprint. He laid out the facts. What he knew, how long he had known, and what would happen next. He didn't threaten. He didn't plead. He simply informed. And when he sealed them in envelopes and placed them neatly in his briefcase, he felt no guilt. No hesitation. By morning, his family would understand something very simple. You don't betray a man like Ryan Holloway without consequences. The morning light was different. Ryan Holloway woke in Lucas's unused guest room to the sound of nothing. No calls, no alarms, no voices. Just the creak of the old ceiling fan, the faint chirp of birds outside, and the slow pulse of his own breathing. He didn't reach for his phone, didn't check emails, didn't look back. Instead, he brewed himself a cup of coffee with the same deliberate movements he'd used the morning before. Measured, mechanical, final. The 3 letters rested in his briefcase like blueprints to a future no one but him had seen coming. Letters written not in rage, but with the cold precision of a man who built skyscrapers and broke contracts with the same steady hand. Facts, figures, dates, details. There was no, I'm sorry. There was no, I forgive you. Only, this is what you did. This is what it cost. By 9 a.m., he was already on the highway. The truck rumbled beneath him as he left the city behind. The Holloway estate, the polished glass offices, the manicured deception, all in the rearview mirror. A man like Ryan didn't run. He restructured. First stop, a lawyer's office 2 towns over. Not one on retainer, a new one. Unconnected. Sharp. He handed over a sealed file, documents he'd prepared months ago, when the cracks in his marriage first started whispering to him between late-night absences and subtle glances exchanged across dinner tables. The file included power of attorney transfers, emergency amendments to his will, instructions for an independent audit of every Holloway trust and shell company. Do not notify anyone until I say otherwise, Ryan instructed. The lawyer, a woman in her 40s with hard eyes and a sharper pen, nodded once. She understood men like him, men who rebuilt empires on the ashes of betrayal. Next stop, a bank in a neighboring county. New accounts, hard assets, safety deposit keys. He even smiled at the teller, a genuine smile. She had no idea that she'd just handed control of over $47 million to a man who'd just erased his family from his financial reality. By noon, he was driving again, this time toward the mountains. No GPS, no itinerary, just a direction. He stopped at a hardware store, paid in cash for a new phone, one that wasn't tied to his name, his company, or the life he'd left behind. He took his time there, browsing, fishing gear, buying a second-hand map, blending in like any middle-aged man reinventing his weekend. By 4 p.m., his former world had fully detonated. Melanie had left 23 voicemails. Amber had posted a story on Instagram about losing everything. Noah had texted 4 separate family members looking for him. Sophia had called the Holloway Construction main line, asking for help, as if he were still her emergency contact. But Ryan, he was untouchable. In a quiet cabin he'd purchased 6 months prior, under a shell company no one knew existed, he finally settled in. The walls were bare, the furniture minimal, a fireplace, a desk, a chair, 1 bottle of scotch, no distractions. Just space to think, to rebuild. He placed the 3 letters side by side on the desk and stared at them for a long time. He could send them now. He had everything ready, couriers, instructions, even timestamps. But something stopped him. Not guilt, not doubt, just clarity. He knew what he needed to do next. The next day, a black car pulled up to the Holloway estate. Not one of his. Inside was a process server. At precisely 10:17 a.m., Melanie Holloway opened the door in her silk robe to receive a heavy envelope marked Confidential, Personal Delivery Only. Inside, divorce papers, a list of frozen accounts, a schedule for asset hearings, and a 4th letter, not handwritten, not personal, just legal. Melanie dropped to her knees on the marble floor. The cold finally hit her. Amber got hers the next week. Delivered to her college apartment by a firm specializing in client wake-up services. Her roommates watched as she ripped open the envelope, eyes scanning the first page. By the second page, she was shaking. Ryan hadn't just cut off her tuition. He had compiled receipts, expenses, screenshots of every drunken weekend, every designer splurge passed off as school-related. And he ended the letter with a single sentence. Graduation is earned, not bought. Noah's arrived during a lecture. He was pulled out of class by a university admin holding a sealed envelope and a withdrawn enrollment form. The letter wasn't cruel. It was structured like a performance review. Your GPA is 2.1. You haven't worked a day in your life. I've paid for every drink, every Uber, every dorm party, and every excuse. That ends now. At the bottom, a job listing was paperclipped. Entry-level construction apprentice, Holloway Site C. Noah tore it in half. But later that night, he looked it up anyway. Sophia's letter came with a bouquet of lilies, the kind Ryan used to bring her when she visited his office as a child. Her letter was softer, more measured. Mom, I chose your facility because I wanted you to have dignity, not luxury. You chose sides. Now I choose distance. He didn't move her out. He simply moved her to a more modest wing. Her nurse was the same. The care was still excellent, just less decorated. It was enough to make her realize the difference between love and loyalty. Weeks passed. The world began to notice Ryan's absence. His CFO resigned under pressure. The media speculated on a breakdown. His board of directors scrambled to find him. They didn't. Ryan Holloway hadn't disappeared. He had relocated, mentally, emotionally, strategically. In the quiet of the cabin, he began designing again. Not buildings, not companies, not revenge, a foundation. One for men like him, men who gave everything only to watch it rot from the inside. He named it The Holloway Principle. Its mission, education, self-reliance, exit strategies. He wrote articles under a pseudonym, gave anonymous interviews, mentored young entrepreneurs through encrypted calls. His face vanished, but his ideas grew, and in that isolation, something unexpected happened. He found peace. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, just peace. 1 year later. Ryan stood outside a construction site in a quiet coastal town, watching a team of apprentices pour concrete. One of them had dark curly hair and a familiar stubbornness in his jaw. Noah. He hadn't seen Ryan, not yet, but he showed up every morning, on time. He carried his own tools, learned to listen, learned to build. Ryan turned away before their eyes, met. He didn't need thanks. He didn't need redemption, just proof that sometimes a man must break the walls he built to rebuild what truly matters.